it. What's your name?
I'm Tim Brown.
What do you do, Tim?
I'm an attorney at Ven's Attorneys. I'm a director in our commercial department. So I do work for business and government relating to commercial transactions, reviewing and vetting and drafting contracts and compliance as well.
Do you think that the South African legislation is in a business owner's best interest or in the government's best interest?
I think it's well intended, but there's a lot of it and the costs of compliance are high. But at the same time, the world is a big place and we've got to keep up with it. So, for example, we may sit here in a bubble and feel that data protection and POPI is another case of over legislation by government, but actually the rest of the world is 20 years ahead of us in complying with that legislation, and we need to do business with them as a starting point. So the first thing about protection of personal information is that it's not new and it's not South African, it's international and it's been around for a while. So it's really in South African businesses' best interest to learn about it, to understand what's required for compliance, and to start thinking about it because the lead time is quite long.
And do you think we have enough time to catch up and compete on an international basis?
One of the question marks with POPI is that although it's already on the law books, the effective date, the start date, hasn't been promulgated yet. So we think that's going to be fairly soon, and then there will probably be a year for businesses and others to comply. That year may seem like quite a long time, but once you understand the conditions that you need to meet for lawfully processing personal information, you soon realize that the year isn't a long time at all. So it's very much the case that local businesses should start thinking and planning now, because it requires structural and system changes in order to comply.
So on the 8th of March, are you going to give us some tools and mechanisms that are going to help us at least hit the ground running before they've given the actual go-ahead?
Yeah. What we'll be doing on the 8th of March really is focusing on what they call the 8 conditions for lawfully processing personal information. And the interesting thing is that those 8 conditions, you'll find them in international legislation in the European Union, Canada, Australia, and elsewhere. There may be 6 or 7 principles and they may have a slightly different format. But part of the international character of POPI is that those 8 conditions are pretty much universal. So we'll look at what those 8 conditions are, what you need to comply. And one of the dangers of POPI is that on first reading those 8 conditions, they may sound relatively easy to implement, but it takes a little bit of time and thought to unpack those and understand what they really mean for business.
That goes back to the you don't know what you don't know.
That's right, yeah. And I think one of the differences, there's the cynical approach to POPI as well. So the POPI Act, the Promotion of Access to Personal Information Act, really had very limited impact on South African business. And there's a cynical approach among some business people that POPI is going to be another pie, a damp squid. But I think some of the differences are, firstly, that there is scope for civil liability under POPI. So someone who is harmed by your processing of personal information can take you on civilly. It's not a criminal matter. They don't have to work through the NPA.
The red tape,
yeah, so it's a civil thing. There's scope for class actions, and there's provision for strict liability. So it doesn't matter whether you were negligent or not. The harm that's been caused, you can be strictly liable for it. So those are reasons why POPI is likely to be more of a problem for South African businesses.
Make a bigger impact as well.
That's right. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I hope you've heard it from the horse's mouth. Tim Brown from Ven's. I hope to see you all there. This is a very important conversation to be a part. Would you agree, hey? Who miss it and miss out.